Welcome to Raven's End, a town where every street corner hides a story and every soul carries a secret. In the Mortuary Collection, we step inside a mysterious funeral home run by the enigmatic and eerie mortician known only as Montgomery Dark. When a curious young woman named Sam arrives seeking a job, Dark begins to share the chilling tales of those who have met their end in the town, each one darker and more twisted than the last. But beware, in this beautifully crafted horror anthology, every tale comes with a price. And sometimes the storyteller hides a story of their own. A young boy appears at the beginning of the film. He's riding through a quiet town, delivering newspapers. Everything seems normal, until he reaches the local funeral home. He notices something strange. The newspaper he left there yesterday is still lying untouched outside the door. Curious, and a little cautious, the boy decides to check it out. He pulls out his small camera and moves toward the silent, eerie building. As he snaps a picture of the funeral home, something unsettling happens. He catches a glimpse of eyes staring back at him from the shadows inside. Suddenly, a man steps out of the funeral home. His presence is cold and commanding. This is Dark, the man who runs the funeral home. Terrified, the boy drops his camera and runs off without it. Dark picks up the camera and places it inside a box already filled with the forgotten belongings of others who had visited this place before. Mysterious, silent, and chilling. Soon after, we see Dark officiating a funeral service for a child. The atmosphere is heavy, filled with sorrow and a strange stillness. After the ceremony, a young woman named Sam shows up. She had come after seeing a help wanted sign posted by Dark. She's looking for a job. Inside the funeral home, Sam is drawn to the strange and eerie collection Dark keeps. Among these items, she finds a shelf of old books, thick, dusty, and worn, yet strangely captivating. Dark tells her these are the stories of the dead. Intrigued, Sam leans in and says, "Tell me some stories. They must be scary and unforgettable." Dark agrees and begins with the first tale. This story takes us back to the 1950s, to a glamorous party where everything sparkles with joy and laughter. Among the guests is a young woman. But she isn't just here for fun, she has a plan. Under the pretense of needing the bathroom, she slips away from the crowd. Once alone, she gets to work, stealing wallets and slipping cash into her purse. She even takes a valuable wristwatch, grinning at her clever trick. But as she prepares to leave, something strange happens. She turns on the light, and a thick, black, sticky liquid splashes on her from above. Disgusted, she tries to clean herself off, when suddenly she hears a strange noise, coming from inside a nearby cabinet. Her curiosity gets the better of her. She struggles to open the cabinet door, and when she finally does, she freezes in horror. Inside is a terrifying creature, its eyes glowing, its tentacles writhing in the darkness. It's trapped for now. Panicking, she slams the door shut and starts to leave. But just then, the stolen wristwatch falls from her bag with a loud crash. The sound echoes. The creature inside stirs. With a violent surge, the monster bursts from the cabinet, its slimy tentacles reaching out. Before she can escape, it grabs her and drags her back into the darkness, into the very cabinet she opened. And just like that, she vanishes, never to be seen again. Sam, however, isn't impressed. She shrugs and comments, "That story was okay. Not exactly something to praise." Her expression shows mild disappointment. She turns to Dark and demands, "I want something scarier, something unforgettable." Dark gives a knowing smile, but before continuing, he pulls out a paper and says, "Before we go further, sign this. It's an agreement, cryptic and official." Sam, though curious, signs it without hesitation. Later, the funeral home is quiet again, almost haunting in its silence. Dark begins the second story. This one, he says, takes place 10 years after the first, back in the 1960s. We're introduced to a young boy. One day he meets a girl, and after a friendly conversation, the two quickly bond. They begin spending more and more time together, forming a strong connection. But the next morning, the boy wakes up to a shocking sight. Red rashes all over his body. Worried, he heads straight to the doctor. The checkup becomes strange when the doctor hears something moving inside the boy's abdomen. An unsettling sound, squishy, twitching, alive. Then the report comes. The doctor's eyes widen. The boy is pregnant. Confused and terrified, the boy stumbles home, clutching his swelling belly. He calls the girl and yells at her, "You did this! Look at what I'm going through!" Anger turns into pain. His stomach starts to twist and swell unnaturally. His skin takes on a strange pale tone, unnerving and inhuman. And then it bursts. The boy collapses and dies. But from his body, a creature is born. A monstrous baby covered in slime and making hideous sounds. The girl's mother arrives and calmly picks up the creature. She carries it into a room, and to Sam's horror, that room is already filled with other monster babies. This story grabs Sam's full attention. She leans in, her eyes wide. "Now that was terrifying," she says. She loves the tension, the mystery, the horror, and how critically twisted it all was. Dark simply nods and leads her down into the cellar. There, in the cold, dim light, he lifts a sheet, revealing a dead girl's body. And so begins the third tale, set another 10 years later in the 1970s. This time, the story is about a young married couple living a seemingly happy life. The husband adores his wife, and their love appears perfect. But after marriage, something changes. The wife begins to show signs of mental illness. Her mood becomes distant, her eyes lost in a world of their own. The husband tries everything to help her: medical treatments, therapy, support. He cooks for her, cares for her, and spends nights beside her, but nothing works. She remains silent, broken, and disconnected. He becomes emotionally exhausted, drowning in sorrow. Still, he refuses to give up. One night, desperate to spark even a flicker of emotion in her, he arranges a candlelight dinner, soft music, gentle light, her favorite meal. She sits quietly across the table, not speaking, not eating, not even blinking. She had completely stopped responding, as if the person he once loved was no longer there. In a last effort to reconnect with his unresponsive wife, the husband gifts her a beautiful sculpture, something delicate and full of meaning. That night, he adds a heavy dose of medicine to her dinner, following the doctor's harsh advice. The doctor had suggested that perhaps ending her suffering was the only way to free her from the mental torment. The husband didn't want to go through with it, but with a heavy heart, he does. As she sits silently across from him, her hand suddenly twitches. She grips his wrist tightly. Startled, the husband panics. Realizing she's still alive, he quickly tries to make her vomit out the drug. But during the struggle, her head hits the edge of the table, and the sculpture he gifted her impales her skull. She dies instantly. In shock, the husband calls the doctor and explains everything: how she moved, how he tried to save her, and how it all went wrong. The doctor, with a chilling calmness, replies, "Then get rid of the body." Left with no other choice, the grieving man wraps his wife's body and places it inside a box. But the box is too small. Her feet won't fit. In desperation, he saws off her legs and places them alongside her body in the box. Breathing heavily, drenched in guilt, he drags the box into an elevator. As the elevator descends, it suddenly stops. Then, blood begins to seep from the box. It trickles, then pours. Soon, the entire elevator is soaked in a pool of crimson. The husband trembles, heart racing. He bangs on the door, begging to get out. Just then, his neighbor arrives and sees the horrifying sight. She screams and calls the police. The elevator resumes moving, slowly downwards. The man, now nearly unconscious, looks at the blood-covered walls around him. He closes his eyes and begins remembering his wife, their happy days, her smile, their dreams, everything that once was. Suddenly, the box pops open. Out crawls his wife's demon, pale, twisted, and vengeful. It lunges toward him, but just as it's about to reach him, he wakes. It was all in his head, a hallucination. His trauma and extreme stress had broken his mind. When the police arrive, they find the real box, inside her dismembered body. The man is immediately taken to a psychiatric hospital. Back in the present, Sam listens intently. She finally looks up at Dark and says, "Your stories are incredible, fascinating, and they all carry strong messages." She pauses thoughtfully. Each tale reminds us, what we do comes back to us. Dark nods silently, his expression unreadable. Then he opens a hidden passage and leads Sam to the sub-basement. The air turns colder, the silence heavier. As they descend, Sam begins to reveal her own truth. "I didn't come here looking for a job," she confesses. Her voice is steady, but her eyes show pain. "I came here for the boy in that coffin." Standing in the shadows of the sub-basement, Sam confesses something shocking. "That child in the coffin recently died because of me," she says, her voice shaking. "I'm the reason behind his death." Dark stares at her silently as she begins to tell her story. Sam reveals that she was supposed to be the child's caretaker. That day, the boy's parents had gone out, leaving him in her care. They had left a voicemail for her. "You can cook anything if you feel hungry. We'll be back soon." So Sam went into the kitchen to cook some meat for herself. As she prepared the meal, the television flickered on with a breaking news report. Several dangerous patients had escaped from a nearby psychiatric hospital. Suddenly, Sam heard something, movement inside the house. She turned and saw a wounded man staggering into the hallway. His shirt was torn and blood dripped from a gash on his arm. Sam rushed to help him at first, but the news came back to her mind. Could this be one of the escaped mental patients? Suspicion consumed her. Acting on impulse and fear, she shoved his hand into the electric meat grinder. The machine roared, blood splattered. The man screamed and fought back, leading to a violent struggle between them. Eventually, Sam was knocked out cold. When she regained consciousness, her head throbbed, but she remembered the child. She got up and ran toward his room, but the man was already headed there. Another brutal fight erupted. During the chaos, the man stumbled and tumbled down the stairs. Sam slowly followed him, her eyes blazing. She looked at him lying there, groaning in pain, and sneered, "You lunatic, you ruined my dinner." Without hesitation, she grabbed the television and dropped it on his head. The man's skull cracked with a sickening crunch. He was dead. A little later, the child's parents returned home. They were horrified to see the blood, the broken TV, and the dead man lying in their house. But then came the most terrifying realization. The man wasn't an escaped lunatic. He was their child's real caretaker, the warden who had been protecting him. And Sam? She wasn't a caretaker at all. She was one of the psychotic patients who had escaped from the psychiatric hospital. That's when the parents noticed something even worse. Their child was missing. They frantically searched the house, calling his name. Then, they opened the oven. Their screams echoed through the house. Inside, they found the horror no parent could ever imagine. Sam wasn't cooking regular meat. She was cooking their child. It all became clear. Sam was not just mentally unstable. She was a serial killer, and even worse, a cannibal. She had a pattern: kidnapping children, killing them, and eating their flesh. And from each child, she kept a tooth as a twisted souvenir. This time, she hadn't gotten the child's tooth. That's why she had come to the funeral home. Just for that. As her story ends, Sam looks up, her eyes now cold and wild. Suddenly, she lunges at Dark and stabs him with a knife. But to her horror, he doesn't bleed. Instead, a thick, black, sticky liquid oozes out from the wound. Dark begins to laugh, a deep, echoing cackle that shakes the room. Sam stumbles back, trembling. She turns and tries to escape, but it's too late. She realizes now she's trapped inside the funeral home, and there is no way out. Sam tried everything she could to escape. She ran through dark halls, pushed against locked doors, screamed into the silence, but it was all in vain. The funeral home twisted around her like a maze, as if the building itself had come alive. No matter where she turned, she ended up right back where she started. It wasn't the house doing this. It was Dark. He had complete control now. Eventually, Sam stumbled into a strange, dimly lit library. The air smelled of dust and something rotten. Suddenly, Dark's voice echoed through the room with a chilling laugh. "My daughter," he said mockingly, "this is only the beginning. Just wait and see what happens next." With a flick of his hand, books started tumbling off the shelves around her. Each book that hit the floor flopped open, and inside were the haunting stories of the innocent children Sam had butchered. Their faces, their laughter, their silence, all trapped in pages soaked with guilt and blood. Then something terrifying happened. The spirits of those children, mutilated and vengeful, began to rise from the open books. They weren't children anymore. They were demons, twisted, broken, but filled with rage. All of them surrounded Sam. She screamed, tried to run, but they grabbed her, pulling her down, and then they started eating her alive. Dark stood watching, unfazed. When the screams fell silent, he walked over and calmly injected the same black, sticky liquid, the one from his own body, into her mangled form. Then, with cold precision, he began to stitch her body back together. Once done, Dark left the funeral home without a word. Outside, under the moonlight, he stood still for a moment, and then vanished into the wind, turning into ashes. It was then revealed that Dark was never human at all. He was a demon, one born from darkness and now gone with it. Back inside the funeral home, something stirred. Sam opened her eyes. She was alive again. Or rather, something else was living through her now. She had become the new keeper of the funeral home. Now the scene returned to the beginning, to that young boy delivering newspapers at dawn. This time, he was sitting quietly inside the funeral home. Sam sat before him, finishing her terrifying story. His face was pale. His hands trembled. I should go home now," he stammered, edging toward the door. "I'm getting late." Sam smiled softly, but with something unsettling in her eyes. "Why are you in such a hurry to go home?" she asked. "We still have to prepare dinner and eat together." The boy froze. The screen faded to black, and the last words heard were Sam's voice, whispering softly, "We still have to dine together." The end. The Mortuary Collection is more than just a collection of spooky stories. It's a haunting reminder that actions have consequences, and the past never stays buried. With its gothic atmosphere, clever twists, and a satisfying blend of horror and morality, it offers a uniquely stylized ride through death, deceit, and destiny. By the time the final candle is blown out, you'll be left questioning who the real monsters are, and whether every ending is truly an end.